football right around the corner, and there's some SEC conversation around the SEC Media Days, and the head coach of LSU, Brian Kelly, was at the SEC Media Days with our very own Ian Fitzsimmons, who you hear with Amber Wilson, weeknight 7 p to 10 p Eastern here on ESPN Radio. And here is Brian Kelly and how he's preparing for week 1 against Clemson.
I need to evaluate, the preparedness and the readiness of our team because we had lost our first 3 openers here at LSU. So regardless of what the circumstances were, right, whether you had a team that wasn't ready or your roster wasn't where it needed to be, it doesn't matter. We didn't win those games. So I had to say what things that we need to look at. And I think we needed to make this a specific, tangible goal and playing our best when our best is needed. And that's in game 1. Not waiting for us to round into shape for that, but to get out of the gates and play championship football against Clemson. So it's all around our building. We're talking about it. It's important for us, and it's a goal that's out there for us, and that's different from what I've done in the past.
Courtney, what's interesting about the comments made by Brian Kelly to our very own Ian Fitzsimmons is college football has expanded the teams in the playoff. Mm-hmm. College football has expanded the amount of games played. Those two factors would de-emphasize, in theory, week 1 of a college football season relative to importance to making a playoff. Not relative to excitement, but relative to importance. Is Brian Kelly just putting himself on the hot seat here?
No, he's there. And he's there for a reason, because at a place like LSU, whether you're Brian Kelly, whether you're Ed Orgeron, whether you're, any coach who's ever been there, it's always national championship or bust. And I know that seems unfair, but think about where that 2019 once-in-a-generation LSU team set the bar and where they haven't been able to get back to. They were incredible. They were undefeated in college football. And the expectation after they moved on from Ed Orgeron, you can't have a 6-7 win season, plus all the off-the-field stuff that was with him, and expect to keep your job. It's double-digit wins every single year. The Texas Bowl, the ReliaQuest Bowl, that's not success at a place like LSU. And when you have these big national primetime openers year after year after year, and you lose all 3 of them, it's a problem. Like, of course, 2022, the heartbreaker, they had the PAT blocked, and they lose by 1 point. After that, they played Florida State again. They got their butts kicked in Orlando. The Southern Cal game last year, we didn't know what USC was going to be the year after Caleb Williams, and they looked pretty formidable when they beat them by a touchdown. Like when he says, is my team ready enough? I have to gauge the preparedness and the readiness. That's been a problem now in your last 3 openers dating back to when you took over in 2022. That cannot continue to be a storyline around Brian Kelly in year 4 for him, where it feels like if he doesn't start getting back into the CFP mix, being one of the 12 teams in the college football playoff, there might be some conversation about life after Brian Kelly, despite how expensive that buyout is.
Yeah, Courtney's absolutely right. The laundry matters. The standards at LSU are not just to be okay. The standards at LSU are not just to be competitive in the SEC. It's to win national championships. We actually have a great piece up at ESPN.com about Brian Kelly and about the hot seat that he finds himself sitting on. And in the very beginning of the piece, the secretary, the receptionist that works for Brian Kelly at LSU is interviewed. And she says, every head coach that I've worked for in my 35 years at LSU has won a national championship. And isn't that so indicative of the standards that he has to meet? That every person that she's worked for, whether it be Les Miles, Nick Saban, Ed Orgeron, have won a national championship. That is the expectation of Brian Kelly. And to be entering year 4 and you're not in the playoff mix with the talent that you can acquire in Louisiana, that's not good enough. And I imagine that the school and that fan base is getting restless.
So let's just use the names of the people you just mentioned, Smalls. Nick Saban, year 4, won a national championship. Les Miles, year 3, won a national championship. Ed Orgeron, year 3, won a national championship. Brian Kelly was 10-4, 10-3, 9-4 last year. This is year 4. So if he does not win a national championship this year, he is unlike his predecessors, who each won in years 3 or 4. That doesn't mean that college football is the same as it used to be. It's not. It's different now. Winning in year 3 or year 4 is not an obvious thing to be able to do here, right? It's a lot harder, you would think than it's been in years past because they play a different sport, NIL, transfer portal, etc. But LSU, as you guys mentioned, is a destination job, or it should be. And yeah, he probably needs to go to the college football playoff in order to keep his job. But here's the catch on all of this. There's two kind of curveballs I'll throw at you. All right. Number one, and thank you, Nuno, buyout numbers. If he were to get fired in November of 2025, the buyout number is $51.7 million.
Ooh.
November 2026, $42.5 million. November 2027, $33.1 million. November 28, $23.4 million. So any way you cut it, he is going to make an enormous amount of money that they will have to pay for in order to fire him. And that money, while LSU's got tons of money, now with the payment of players because of NIL more regular, the same people you would call on for the buyout are the same people you're going to call on to say, hey, there's a 5-star kid in Palm Beach County, Florida, we need to scoop up, and he's got offers from Alabama, Miami, Florida, Florida State. They're the same money. It's the same pool of money.
Yeah. Speaking of Alabama, really quickly, do you think the pressure is higher on him now that Nick Saban's not at Alabama?
That was the second curveball. The second curveball is the scuttlebutt, let's say, around question, not statement. Would Nick Saban ever come back? And I think that if that question persists and Nick Saban does not go on College Game Day and say, I will never coach college football again, and even that, I'm not going to be the coach of Alabama. We've seen that before. Unless he squashes that, Alabama and LSU will have even more pressure on them than ever before because he's hovering, Courtney.
Yeah.
Or, Smalls, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just saying, even beyond him hovering, that's always kind of a bit like when we talk about Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, we say, man, he can't beat 15, but that's the GOAT in waiting. There's always a bit of a caveat that lessens the defeat because of how excellent the opposition is. And not that LSU would ever really give that to Alabama. It's their hated rival, but there is something about not being able to be on the same level as somebody who is an all-time great like Nick Saban. And not to diminish Kalen DeBoer, but if you're LSU, you're thinking we can hang with Kalen DeBoer.
Oh, yeah.
You see a window.
Exactly.
Like you see a window now that the GOAT of coaching in the college ranks is gone. But I don't know if I view it the same way because of the influx of talent that you have elsewhere and the balance of power shifting in the SEC. Texas is going to vie for a national championship this year. They have to. Those are the expectations that they have with Arch Manning as their quarterback, with one of the best defenses in college football, and where they finished off last year. Like we're never going to see the buyouts of the Jimbo Fisher type anymore. $75-something million for him to sit and fat and happy for as long as he wants to. Michelle's right about that. The amount of money that it's going to take to get these coaches out of those seats, a lot of that would be better served on recruiting and on the transfer portal. However, think about the pressure for Brian Kelly in his seat given where he left. Coaches don't willingly leave Notre Dame. Notre Dame was in the national championship game last year. Notre Dame was a CFP favorite from the very beginning last season. LSU was not. I think that there's also that caveat of what's going on up in South Bend that certainly puts the pressure on Brian Kelly.